Let's talk about fighting games for a moment. So we all know the classics, right? Street Fighter, Tekken, Marvel vs. Capcom, Mortal Kombat, Injustice, maybe even King of Fighters, Killer Instinct, and you instantly know what I'm talking about. How about I tell you about Darkstalkers? Ring any bell? No? Anything about the characters, at least? Nothing. Well, you're forgiven because the last original game for this franchise was way back in 1997. Not counting ports, remasters, and collections, this franchise has been frozen since that time. Today, I'll be talking about Darkstalkers, the franchise on hold. Maybe I should wear something more Halloweeny for this franchise since it is a monster mash. Hiya! There. Much more elegant. But wait, what's Darkstalkers? A little lore about this franchise. So back in the 90s, Capcom had just upgraded from the CPS-1 arcade board to the CPS-2 arcade board. And I won't bore you with the technical details about the boards and everything. So let's just say basically the games on the arcades came from this to this. What an upgrade. So anyways, when they upgraded their technology, Capcom wanted an original title for their hardware. Now, regarding this, there are reportedly conflicting accounts. One account states that the art director's colleague came up with the idea of a monster fighting game. Another says that it was during a brainstorming session which originally was focused on Japanese yokai monsters before they decided to introduce other monsters from across the world. According to the producer, Alex Jimenez, the franchise started out as a Universal Monsters game, but Universal understandably refused to license the characters out, which prompted them to create original characters with references to the Universal monsters. And this process took only about an hour. Impressive. Keep in mind the development of the first game was during a time when most fighting games relied more on stereotypes for character concepts, and the character visuals had minimal variations. Haruo Murata, the planner for Capcom, added individuality and memorable traits, and several unique concepts to characters that were being cranked out by the designers. Interestingly, it was the overseas staff that started suggesting several ideas for the characters, as the Japanese team really hadn't thought much for the characters' backstories nor the setting of the game. Alright, the characters. So, they're an interesting bunch. I hope you agree with me. I mean, compared to, other characters. Roll call. Dmitry Maximov. Dmitry Maximov is considered the Ryu of the franchise and is the series' protagonist. A vampire lord formerly living in the demon world Makai, he was banished after attempting a coup against Lord Belial Ainsland, ruler of Makai. Morrigan Ainsland. Morrigan is considered the most popular Darkstalker characters amongst the fans of the series. She's Dmitry Maximov's rival and is the adopted daughter of Belial Ainsland. She has little interest in assuming the responsibilities of being a ruler, however, and is instead a carefree layabout. Also, she's Scottish. Make of that information as you will. Anacharis. Anacharis was once the pharaoh of a powerful empire. He was revived by Pyron and is seeking to regain his rule. Anacharis also appears in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Capcom Fighting Evolution. Bishamon. Bishamon is a ghostly samurai inhabiting a cursed suit of armor called the Hanya, which drives him into a blood frenzy. After Pyron's defeat, the curse is broken and the freed Bishamon and his wife become priests. John Talbane. John Talbane, or Gallon in Japan, is a British werewolf and karate master seeking to escape his werewolf curse. He utilizes nunchuck-based martial arts, and an alternate version of him called Dark Talbane is a playable secret character in certain iterations of the game. Lord Raptor. Lord Raptor, called Zabel Zarak in Japan, is an Australian rock and roll musician revived as a zombie by his Lord Ozumu after sacrificing himself and his audience. Talk about audience participation, dude. He travels with La Malta, a creature assigned by Ozumu to spy on the overly ambitious raptor. Rikuo. Rikuo, also known as Albath in Japan, is a merman who believes himself the sole survivor of his race after an earthquake in the Amazon caused by Pyron no less destroys his kingdom. Sasquatch. Sasquatch is a rotund yeti who travels from Canada to investigate Pyron after the aliens' arrival. Victor. Victor von Gerdenheim is a large German humanoid modeled after the Frankenstein's monster. He seeks to fight Pyron to prove to his creator that he's the strongest in the world, but his creator is already dead after he beats Pyron. What a downer ending, I guess, for this character. Felicia. The cat girl Felicia dreams of being a famous singer and dancer in Las Vegas. She eventually runs an orphanage as a nun. Felicia is also one of those popular characters from this franchise. She has since appeared in a multitude of games developed by Capcom and was also present in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Capcom Fighting Evolution, SNK vs. Capcom, The Match of the Millennium, and so on and so forth. Huitzil. Huitzil, or also known as Phobos in Japan, are a series of robots meant to serve Pyron. After causing the extinction of the dinosaurs, they remained dormant until unearthed by the Mayans, who utilized them as guardians. When Pyron returns to Earth centuries later, he revives them to serve him again, where they act as a sort of unplayable sub-boss in the first Darkstalkers game. Pyron. Pyron is an alien that resembles living fire, seeking to conquer Earth as a prize. He is the main antagonist for the first two games and is the unplayable boss in the first Darkstalkers game. For Night Warriors, there are 3 new characters. Well, okay, technically there's like 2. One is like a partner to one of them. But anyways, Anita. Anita is a small young girl that travels with Donovan, emotionless and mute after a tragedy befell her family. After Donovan is consumed by the evil of those he's killed, she recovers and as an adult wonders what become of him. Anita is also present in Marvel superheroes as a secret playable character with so much OP damage. Like OP damage. Donovan. Donovan Bane is a Dhampir monster hunter with a massive sword with a curved end. He acts as a Buddhist monk. He does so to atone for his own quote-unquote cursed blood. However, the evil of those he kills infects him and drives him insane. Xianko. Xianko, or known as Lei in Japan, is a Jiangshi with her sister Mei Ling, which is also known in Japan as Lin Lin, acting as a seal to help keep her powers in check. Seeking to free their mother's soul from a powerful curse, they succeed and are reincarnated as a pair of young girls. However, they are later pulled into Jedha's domain during the events of Vampire Savior, where they can assume their previous forms and eventually return home. Xianko is also one of the popular characters of this game for some reason, I don't know why. Xianko will also later appear in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fate of Two Worlds, as well as its sequel Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Introduced in Darkstalkers 3 or Vampire Savior. Baby Bonnie Hood. Baby Bonnie Hood, or also known as Buletta in Japan, is a young European girl armed with an Uzi and several explosives. She is dressed similarly to Little Red Riding Hood, and she travels with her dog Harry and hunts monsters for money. This character, as far as I can tell from my research, is intended to personify everything dark and evil about humanity, whereas the other characters are monster folklore. She is intended to represent the worst of us. That's really dark. Jedha Doma. Jedha Doma is the new main antagonist of the third game and acts as the final boss in turn. A nobleman demon in Makai, he was originally destroyed but later was resurrected. Finding that Makai has devolved into chaos, he seeks to combine all the souls into one singular being, luring the other characters to his domain. Jedha Doma would later appear in Capcom Fighting Evolution and would also ultimately appear in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Lilith. Lilith is a fragment of Morrigan's soul separated from her as an infant to keep her power in check. Jedha Doma later discovers this fragment and after giving it a form resembling a younger Morrigan with pink short hair, tasks her with luring worthy souls to his domain. Meanwhile, Lilith seeks to reunite and take control of Morrigan's body, which she sees as rightfully hers. Lilith was originally designed to be androgynous, with her gender officially listed as unknown. So yeah, I guess that didn't work out later in the game. QB. QB, or short for Queen Bee, is from a race of humanoid insects called soul bees that at one time served Jedha Doma. Driven to near extinction after his initial death, however, they now seek to consume and breed rapidly. So the plot. It's really a simple plot if you think about it. The Darkstalkers franchise takes place on the planet Earth that is in the process of merging with the realm known as Makai. The reason for the merging varies with the continuity that you follow, but basically a continuing theme is that the union between the two realms brings the arrival of the Darkstalkers to the human world. Darkstalkers being a catch-all term for the various creatures of legend such as Morrigan or Dimitri or Shenko. The first two games, the story centers around an alien overlord named Pyron, who returns to Earth after many years. He tries to conquer the world with an army of robots. This in turn brings the Darkstalkers out of hiding to oppose his rule over humanity and the supernatural. Basically, the first two games aren't really that different. The difference between Night Warriors and Darkstalkers Revenge, by the way, totally not confusing titles by the way. So for simplicity's sake, I'll just call Darkstalkers Revenge as Darkstalkers 2. Anyways, the only difference between the two is that they are understandably new stories and endings for the added characters, like Donovan or Pyron. Darkstalkers 3 is where it can be considered a true sequel. In this story, the story centers on Jedadoma, who's resurrected back to life. Seeing the chaotic state of Makai, he decides the only way to save it is to recreate it. Absolute villain logic. To do this, he conjures a pocket dimension called Majigen, which requires him to summon souls worthy enough to feed his new world. These souls belong, however, to the Darkstalkers, and thus it's up to them to save the world. Again, the third game removes Donovan, Huitzel, and Pyron from the roster and replaces them with 4 new ones: Jedadoma, Lilith, QB, and BB Hood. There are some updates with this game, like Street Fighter 2, only it just re-adds the removed characters and gives them endings. Regarding the character designs and animations, while the characters are from horror and monster folklore, the developers wanted the graphics for this new hardware to be dynamic and expressive as possible, and as such, they took specific cues from classic Warner Brothers cartoons and Hanna-Barbera animation. To be honest, I do see how some of these characters would not look out of place in a Scooby-Doo episode, so we can safely say that they did their job. Also, fun fact, Morrigan's sprite is reused from Night Warriors, meaning from Night Warriors up until to at least Capcom vs SNK, that is the same sprite. It's not as noticeable in, let's say, Marvel vs Capcom, but it really starts to stick out, especially in Capcom vs SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium, where she contrasts with the 3D background and the other character sprites. Regarding the gameplay, starting with Night Warriors, it had several new gameplay features such as air blocking, crouch walking, and chain combos. It featured a special meter gauge, similar to Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, I believe, which the player could fill up to perform either a unique combo type move, much like the previous Super Turbo, and which is called ES in the Darkstalkers series, or a powered up version of one of their specials, called EX. This concept would also appear in later Darkstalkers games. However, unlike Turbo, the special in Darkstalkers gradually drains unless the player performs their special moves, so it prevents players from preserving their super move for later use. In Darkstalkers 2, the gauge doesn't drain, allowing players to conserve and stock up their specials for later use. 2 types of super moves are featured in the game: ES specials, requiring a portion of the special gauge, and EX specials, which requires the entire stock of the special gauge to perform. In 3, it discards the traditional round-based system in favor of what is dubbed the damage gauge system. Now, battles take place during a single round, with each fighter having 2 life bars and corresponding life markers, like those in Killer Instinct. When one fighter loses a life marker after the life bar is emptied, the fighters reset their positions as if starting a new round, but the victorious fighter retains their life bar, however low it is. The upside here is that now some of the health lost is displayed in white, which can be recovered if the player doesn't take any more damage. The game also introduces the Dark Force system, which uses a bar or super meter to allow players to perform special abilities unique to each character for a limited time period. To conclude, Darkstalkers is a very much underrated franchise personally. There are a ton of interesting characters, and I feel like some of them should at least be at the level of Ken in terms of general knowledge and popularity. As of recording and writing this video, Capcom just posted an SF6 tweet for people to vote their favorite colors from the Darkstalkers series to put into their Street Fighter characters. They also released a Darkstalkers Gala Fighting Pass with the option to stylize yourself as John Talbane. I'm honestly surprised that John isn't as popular, at least to my knowledge, considering the internet, but if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. And like I mentioned, there is a collection of the 5 Darkstalkers game released in Capcom Fighting Collection, but I feel like the time is ripe for another entry within the franchise. It doesn't have to be a 3D designed game like Street Fighter 6. It could still just be, another 2D styled fighting game, but at least there's another entry. Overall, I think this franchise is slept on, and it should be revived like a corpse under the full moon. And thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I personally feel like Darkstalkers is such an underrated gem in the Capcom collection. In the next video, I'll be tackling a certain supernatural detective that takes place in Manila. And as always, thank you so much for your support. It really makes my day. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And these are my socials below in the description. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.